Illegal immigrants are finding all manner of ways to enter the United States. Last year, more than 700,000 people illegally overstayed visas within the U.S. Meanwhile, illegal crossings into the U.S. from Canada have more than doubled. And on the Mexican border, crossers are increasingly aware they can exploit hysteria about family separation, so-called, to their advantage. A man caught illegally crossing the Mexican border with a girl claimed she was his daughter. In fact, the girl was entirely unrelated to him, and he had raped her multiple times. Thomas Homan is a former director of ICE, and he joins us now. Tom, 700,000 visa overstayers in 1 year suggests, if nothing else, that this figure we've heard for years now, about 11 million so-called undocumented immigrants, is likely to be something of an underestimate. Would you agree?
Well, I think the overstay visas make up about 40% of the estimate, 11, 12 million. But it's something we got to address. I mean, you know, we've asked Congress, again, same talking points I've used for a long time. We've asked Congress to address the visa overstays, to make it a crime to overstay the visa. It's not a crime like entering the United States illegally is a crime. So Congress can certainly help us by making that a crime and holding people accountable for breaking their promise of leaving the United States on a temporary visa.
But just to be clear on this, we live in a modern high-tech age. Many countries, such as France or the United Kingdom, for example, have exit controls. They check you out, as it were. Why is it that we presumably know these people have overstayed their visas, but that nothing gets done about it? Is it just because, as you've explained, it's actually not illegal to ignore that?
Well, it's not illegal, but we do address overstay population. But again, there's 11, 12 million, and there's a few thousand officers. So we prioritize those that have a criminal nature. When we look at those overstayed visas, we actually prioritize those who come from countries of interest that meet a certain demographic, and we look for those who have committed crimes, been arrested. We look for them first. But we got to remember, a lot of stories I'm reading is, well, the president's too concentrated on the wall, and he's too concentrated on that, not enough about the overstays. But we've got to remember, the people that get a visa, they do go through a clearance program, so we're aware of their criminal history. Where those coming across the border illegally, many of them are criminals, so we really do need to concentrate on that southern border.
Let's look at what's happening on the Canadian border. I gather a lot of this is just south of Montreal. It's like a kind of 30-mile strip of the Vermont-Quebec border, what you guys call your Swanton sector. I believe, where they're basically just small rural border crossings, often like the famous town of Derby Line, where the town library and the Opera House actually straddle the border. They're shared communities. These are not places which historically have seen a lot of illegal immigration. Why are suddenly Mexicans, Middle Easterners, discovering that Canada is an easy way to get into the U.S. from?
Because of that exact reason. They have figured out Canada has a very weak immigration system. I mean, have you seen in the last year how many refugees that couldn't play the system here under this president, who takes it very seriously, went to Canada? Because Canada has very low immigration volumes, and they have weak immigration laws. This is why now these numbers have ticked up on the northern border. This is a perfect time to us work with Canada to help them strengthen their immigration laws. For instance, they should require a visa from Mexicans when they enter Canada. And we can work, we have great relationships with Canadian law enforcement. This is something we should be working on together. But I actually grew up in upstate New York, off the St. Lawrence River and Thousand Islands region. There's places you don't have 100 feet of vision. So it's less than a 1-minute boat ride across the St. Lawrence River to get to the United States. And it's a hard swath of land to cover.
No, and often those border posts are just one room. I mean, seriously, though, Justin Trudeau sentimentalizes illegal immigration even more than the Democrats do. Realistically, working with the Canadians isn't going to get too far, is it, Tom?
Well, I think now that they've seen what happened with the number of refugees that left the United States to go to Canada because they're weak, I've talked to Canadian immigration authorities. They're concerned. So I think for the first time in a long time, they're actually looking to see how they can toughen it up. I went to a law enforcement seminar up in New York, and I met with some Canadian law enforcement, and I think they've awoken to this issue, and I think you're going to see them make some changes this year.
Okay, let's hope so. Thomas Homan, former director of ICE, thank you. Earlier this year,